So about Clubs Inc., I don't know for how many of you knows us already, but we are a ServiceNow partner since 2011. We're based in Santa Clara, and we are a full ServiceNow shop, meaning that we take care of everything that ServiceNow does. We have over 100 customers so far, spread all over the place, all over the world. But our key people, so our technical consultants, are mainly in the US and Australia. These are what we cover. Okay, these are our specialties, but specifically this year, we're gonna focus on CSM, Customer Service Management, Service Portal, and HR. So if you guys are interested in that, we would be more than happy to help you in these three things. So that's my presentation. I don't wanna take more time. I just wanna pass everything to Darla and her amazing presentation. So I'm gonna give her the control. And I hope you guys enjoyed that.
Thanks, Julia.
The webinar.
Thanks, Julia. So I can you guys hear me fine? Everybody's muted, so I'll just assume silence is yes. And thanks everybody for spending your 10 o'clock in the morning or wherever you are. Right now I'm in East Coast, so it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon for me. And I appreciate you spending your hour with us. Hopefully after this webinar, it'll kind of give you an idea of what you can do with your service catalog. So just our topic for today is on advanced service catalog and how you can utilize service portal widgets in order to elevate your catalog platform. So Service Portal is a new product, and I'm going to tackle that a little bit in the presentation. Not too much in depth. There's a lot of materials out there. But before we begin, a little bit information about myself. What I mentioned earlier, I'm based out of East Coast. Specifically, I'm in Georgia. I've been working in IT industry for more than 10 years. And also worked for more than 4 years using ServiceNow in my right ways. Like I started as a fulfiller and then worked my way up into becoming a developer. Very interesting career change from what I used to be, and hopefully if we get an opportunity to meet face to face, I would probably tell you more about my travel history. And so that's a little bit about myself. So moving on to ServiceNow. ServiceNow is, I'm not going to guess, but I'll just overview. ServiceNow actually has a lot of products that they have. Very competitive platform that is very useful in terms of not just ITSM, but now they offer it for security incident response, financial management, even customer service management. And one of the new things that they have offered in their latest release, which is Helsinki, is Service Portal. So Service Portal is it's an alternative user experience to the standard platform UI. So previously we have what we call CMS, which uses it's still a front-facing portal for our end users or for our consumers. But it's it's very challenging to kind of develop unless you are very familiar with Jelly. And it's not as, how do I say, it doesn't leverage the latest technologies that we have in the market right now, such as Bootstrap, AngularJS, and all these other features. Well, Service Portal, on the other hand, has those functionalities, so you can just imagine it's more responsive, so you don't have to code differently if you are using Service Portal. All you have to make sure of is, well, if you do write the code is mobile friendly, and you can also use existing technologies out there outside of ServiceNow in order to build up your Service Portal. So that's just on the portal side. But the prerequisite of our discussion today is making sure that you have Service Portal. If you are upgrading from older releases, it's not going to come, the plugin you'll have to turn on. in the back end before you can utilize it. But uh, if you are joining or if you have purchased ServiceNow in the Helsinki release and moving on to Istanbul and Jakarta, you're gonna see that that plugin is already turned on for you. Before we begin, I want to ask a couple of questions, sort of like a prerequisite. Do you have do you qualify for Service Portal? And you want to ask yourselves these questions. Are you already in Helsinki version? If you are not, then make plans first to upgrade to Helsinki. The next question you want to ask is what browser are you using, in your company or your customers. If you are a consultant, you want to check what kind of browsers they're using. There's a document wiki or a document out there that states what is the expected minimum browser platform that is supported by Service Portal. Unfortunately, IE9 is not compatible, so either encourage them to upgrade IE versions, which will be very useful also for security. And at the same time, you want to possibly hold off until the technology in your environment has caught on. The next question you want to ask yourself is, have you upgraded to Knowledge v3? So Knowledge v3 is also dependent on that browser version. It's not going to run the Angular framework if you don't have the correct browser version. And then the second, Knowledge v3 also uses the Angular framework. So it's essential that you have upgraded also to Knowledge v3. Now, upgrading to Knowledge v3 is not really complicated. Even if you are a multilingual company or a global company that you've turned on different languages in ServiceNow, it shouldn't be complicated for you to upgrade your knowledge management application. So the next one is, how are your client scripts? This is very important because some of the things that you're going to have to check are the DOM manipulations. You want to make sure that if you have any synchronous glide AJAX, you want to replace it with async. Also, I mentioned earlier that Service Portal is mobile responsive, so you want to make sure that when you do function calls, you're going to use mobile glide form compliant scripts. And there are a lot of resources out there, and at the end of this presentation, I will be providing some resource links that you can look into to learn more about the client scripting part or the scripting part of Service Portal. So when I was talking about Knowledge v3, I brought up multilingual instances. I've come across more than once of companies I work for or provided services wherein their instances are multilingual, some as many as 8. You want to make sure that you kind of make a tally of what are their other extra setups in their platform or in your platform before you just jump into Service Portal. Make sure that you completely understand what are the extra flavors that they have. So say, for example, e-signature. Does your company use e-signature in terms of approving change requests? Because if they do, then you're going to have to factor that in your Service Portal, especially if you allow your users to approve a change, for example, where e-signature is tied to, and put that in your Service Portal. So out of the box, that functionality may not be available yet, so just keep that in mind, and that you may have to factor that in and work that into your Service Portal. And any other advanced setup that you have in your platform. So if you, especially those platforms that has been there since before Aspen, and you've done a lot of like integrations, a lot of application that is out of the box, and you want to expose that in your service portal, just take a tally, make sure you do an audit in your platform before you jump into service portal. So service catalog is going to be our primary focus, but the service catalog that I will be demoing runs on service portal, which is why I want to discuss service portal first. So if you don't know service portal or service catalog, so service catalog is, think of it like an ordering platform. It helps you, the overall service catalog, or what some other companies call it request catalog, is it's kind of a way for you to provide your customers or your employees a way to do self-service opportunities. Now, if you have some of the extra bells and whistles when you purchase ServiceNow, for example, orchestration, for example, let's see, Twilio or other plugins out there that that doesn't come out of the box when you buy your service. You can definitely maximize your service catalog because, like, for example, if you have orchestration, you actually have the ability to have if they want to create a new user for a new hire, then you can just utilize orchestration in your service catalog in order to create that user. So the overall idea, however, for service portal and service catalog is that it's designed for people or for ServiceNow users and customers to be able to get their system up and running quickly, compared to the old way of setting up employee self-service page. Also, it's designed for those who know no code, little code, or are pro in coding in ServiceNow, right? So before in ESS, you have to be pro code in order to deliver a good-looking employee self-service page or self-service page to the consumers. In Service Portal and Service Catalog, you can kind of divide the work to designers, to some people who know how to do a little bit of code so to do some maintenance work, and then there are those who are professional in coding that they can just spin out what we call widgets, right? So here's a little bit of checklist again before you proceed with your service catalog. You want to make sure you review your catalog client scripts. So in Service Portal, because it's mobile responsive, you got to make sure that when you put in the UI type on your catalog client scripts, it should be set to both. So let me pause my presentation for a moment here and just jump in here to my instance and just show the catalog client script. I'm not sure if everybody is familiar or it's their first time, so just bear with me. I want to make sure I cover some basic items in order to ensure that you are successful when you transition. So the part where I mentioned UI should be set to both. This is the setup here. You want to make sure you just choose UI type all. Now you may see something else. You may see desktop, mobile, and all. You may not see /service portal in your instance. The reason behind it is I'm running this on Istanbul. So, but in the UI type, just choose all in order for your scripts, catalog client scripts, to run into in your platform correctly or in Service Portal correctly. Another thing that you want to be mindful of are the variables. So let me just jump into variables. So for the variables, there are some limitations on some of the scripts. Okay, so if you're not familiar with some of the variables, there is, again, documentation out there provided by ServiceNow in order for you to familiarize yourself with types of variables out there, right? So one of the key things that you will see as I continue on with my presentation is this UI macro. But there are some limitations on some variables. So say, for example, checkboxes. So this specific variable type, as well as list collectors. So just for checkboxes, uh, I know that there is a script that was published by the ServiceNow guru. It's been used by a lot of companies. I've seen it, a lot of users, and it's a very useful script on making checkbox variables mandatory. But that script no longer works for the service portal. So you're going to have to either rewrite it if you have that in your platform, or avoid or find a way when you write your client script as an alternative way of making it mandatory. Right. So if you are going to make a checkbox mandatory, that I'm just saying that specific client script may not work in your environment anymore. So just set that, understand that expectation. It's not that the script is broken; it's just not compatible with that specific release version. In this case, Helsinki Service Portal. If you are also a fan of the slush bucket, which is the list collector. So for the list collector, the slush bucket is not visible to our users. We're gonna come across a list collector as I do a demo later on. So these are just some of the items that you wanna be aware when you go ahead and look at, or when you review your catalog client scripts. So another area you want to be aware of is your UI policies. So UI policies, that's a common mistake or common confusion is the onload. Just be mindful also of your UI policies. And then leverage order guides. Now, on the initial release of Helsinki, there was an issue with order guides not kind of showing up correctly in the service portal. They have addressed this already. So if you want to just make sure you are in patch 6 or greater in order to ensure that you have the correct setup for order guides. Patch 8 actually has the one of the best fixes for order guides. So if you run specific workflows wherein before, let's say you have a set of order guides of installing, let's say, or provisioning hardware and software to your employee, and it's bundled in an order guide, and you have a workflow. Logically, before you can install a software, you need the hardware first. So with patch 8, what they've done is they ensure that on the service portal side, when you submit your request, that order guide name is in your requested item. That way, what will happen is you can tell your workflow to say, oh, when this is part of an order guide, make sure that the hardware request gets completed first, and then run the workflow for software. So patch 8 has the most stable one. If you can get that, then that'll be better for you as well. Decide to use or not use cart. So this is something that I kind of, some people use the cart. I'm kind of like mixed in it. I'm not going to tell you what is correct or incorrect in terms of cart. It's just up for you and your team to decide, do you want to leverage the cart functionality within ServiceNow or just stay without the cart? So there are pros and cons. I just try to understand which one would be a best fit for your environment, and then just go with it. There might be some limitations, but just make sure that you go back to the release version to ensure that it's compatible with what your existing setup is or what you want your setup to be like. And then lastly, please be mindful when you're cloning out-of-the-box widgets. So when you clone an out-of-the-box widget, so say for example, we have a widget which is, let's say the form for the order guide. If you clone that widget and added your own scripts, it's going to be most likely that any release bug patch fixes that they have, it will only apply to the out of the box and not on your clone. So be mindful when you're cloning. Make sure you read release notes so that if you do clone something that is out of the box and you are leveraging it as an embedded widget, or you're leveraging, say, for example, an alternative clone version of it, make sure you capture whatever they fixed in that out of the box widget and apply it in your clone version so that you have a great instance or a service portal to work with. All right, so another thing I mentioned earlier was the macro variable. So the macro variable is going to be the useful way of you to embed or display a widget into your catalog item. You're going to see a lot of that when I do the demos. The macro variable inserts a UI macro in the catalog item. UI macros itself will not work, but when you call it using the default field that you see here in the I boxed in red, or in the widget, it will help you display that specific widget into your service catalog. So the first thing you want to do before you can have your widget in a catalog, right, is you got to make sure that you build that catalog item. We're not going to tackle that in this demo. There are a lot of resources out there. So build your catalog item and then create a new variable that will be that is a macro. So it can be either a macro or a macro with label if you want to show the label. And then what you want to do is then attach the widget or indicate the widget name in there, or call it through the default value field. All right. So hopefully I'm not going too fast. I'm going to start with a demo. There's a use case where there are four use cases that I will talk about, and there will be some. I'm going to balance it between showing you how it looks like in the front end, and I'm not going to jump into the actual code. I will show the widget and how it looks like, but not really too intensely on the code part. I mean, this is just a great way for you to pique your interest into how you can, explore and expand on your service catalog. So my first use case is a customer requires a waiver to be completed before being allowed to use the CD drive or the USB of their employees' PCs. Now, we did not want the user to blindly guess which PC they have a waiver for, so we use an out-of-the-box widget to display a table of what items the user has. So what it is that we didn't want to overanalyze it. We took stock of what is in the out-of-the-box and actually leveraged that out-of-the-box widget and called it in our widget itself. So we embedded it. So high level, this is how it looks like. So you will notice that this is actually another table, and it displays information about the waiver. So that's a good screenshot. Now let me go ahead and jump into that sample. So this is the sample form, and let me just fill it up. And then I'm going to go and jump into the waiver. So don't mind the HTML tags here. We're actually doing some fixes. But as what you will notice here, this is the table that it's calling a table. So imagine if we're going to have another use case for it, it will probably be hardware. Any hardware that the user is assigned to a user, Joe employee. You can have a list there of possibly PCs, printers, maybe even mobile devices. That way, if they want to report, one of my hardware is broken, they can just pick a list of items that they see there and not guess, because it's like if the important component is, we need the serial number, we can display that in the table, and then the user just picks whatever item is in there and populate that information in here, right? So that's one scenario. So let me show you how it looks like in the back end. So this is the widget. What the widget does, let me hide client script since we're not looking at client script. So what the widget does is it actually just focusing on the HTML component of it. If there is no value in the in terms of the table, it will actually give you the user this information. You currently do not have any L terms with or L term or PC, that's the term for PC, with active waivers listed. And you're going to notice here that this is red, and we leverage header 3. So it's really big. You know, it'll really tell the user, yo, you don't have any waivers, so you can't really submit anything for this one. But if they do have, then it'll display the waivers that they have. So what we've done is we've called the out-of-the-box table. So this is the widget, or the out-of-the-box widget, sorry. This is the out-of-the-box widget. It's available, so we just called it, and we said, you know, this is the table that you will need to use. I want you to display these fields to the user, and I want you to filter it only to this set of values, only to who's logged in, active, or whether it's active or not, and then arrange it by, you know, the PC name or PC number. So it's very, as what you see here, is very light in code. There's really not much to it. I think the heaviest part of it is really more on like making sure that they know that they don't have anything in it, nothing to submit about. So that's why we added this L term part. So that's the first use case. So let me jump back to my slide. The second use case is the customer wants to ensure that the user does not automatically check a box to confirm that they have read the waiver. So the same example or same catalog item, they want to make sure that when have the user at least read the waiver, or put an attempt to have the user read the waiver, and then accept or reject whatever the request or the waiver before they can submit it. So obviously if they reject it, they cannot submit it because they have to accept the waiver as part of their audit. So we wanted to actually have the user to easily edit the waiver form so that we transferred it into a knowledge article. You can have the text of, say for example, you have IT security policy. You can either put that actual text in your HTML, but that will be very clunky, and it's harder to edit and maintain when when the policy needs to be updated. So we decided to just publish it as a knowledge article, and then we used the modal window in order to open the waiver form, and then we added a custom action button in the modal in order to pass a value to the catalog variable. So how it is, I know it's a lot of words, but how it is very simple. They click a button at the background, the modal opens up, they have an accept it or reject button over here. If they click accept, it passes that value to that check box, and I'll show this also at the background. And then if they click reject, it will uncheck that, and they will not be able to submit their form. So let me go ahead and show that quickly. So using the same form, let me go ahead and submit a new waiver. This might take a while. Okay, so this is where I put in the PC information, for example. I pick all the items here. I need to copy. So I put a check here. So here's an example of the check boxes. Earlier, we included a script here so that it will make sure that if the user does not put a check in any of the items, at least one, then it'll throw an error, and I'll show that also. So I'll just fill up all this. Now, this is the use case that I've mentioned in the previous slide. When they click this button, so they have to read and acknowledge. Now, if they don't really read, they just hover over it and then just accept. That's, you know, it's like an honor system, right? It's on them. But if you want to possibly put a timer, you know, let them wait 20 seconds before they can click accept, it's kind of be irritating, but it is feasible if you want to do it like that. But because this is a knowledge article, any information here that they have, it's actually set up in the knowledge article that it'll open up into a new page. So all the links here are live. They just pretty much, if they need more information, they can click it. I'm not in the internal network, so I can't open it, but it is live, and you just have to format. The only thing is you have to format your knowledge article to look like how this looks like in order to display that. So when they click accept, let me reject it first because I want to show how it shows up in the background. So this is a read-only field. That's what you see. You can click it even if I click it many times. So once I click accept, you notice it will have now a checkbox here, right? And then if I try to submit this, this is the part where we do that validation on the document types. So they have to pick at least one item. And once they pick one item, then they can go ahead and submit the form, right? So very simple. And it's a very light code. The majority of the work is really going to be on the knowledge article. So just to open up the KB. So another reason why so this is how the knowledge article looks like. We wanted to display, so this has to be set up correctly in the front end first. So the knowledge article is essential, right? That way, during version control, the author of the knowledge article or the team that is in charge of this whole process can just edit the knowledge article, and the waiver in the form will automatically get updated. So if we want to look at how that looks like, I'll show you the widget. So it's also a widget. So just bear in mind that I created a variable, I added a macro, and then I called that widget, right? So in this case, the essential component here is over here. This is the modal. And then we indicated we wanted to large, so it's still mobile responsive. It's just we want more space within, or web space in order to display the waiver. And then over here is where when you click accept, this is what put a check on this catalog item, or sorry, when you click reject, so it kind of puts so this is where it puts a check on that checkbox. All right, so this section over here. And this is where we are calling that specific knowledge article. Now you can make it more versatile by making like a template of that modal, and and have the user, or as they reuse it over and over, just indicate the KB article name. So you can go crazy with this one, right? Definitely. All right, so just a little bit of time check. I'm gonna move a little bit quicker. So that's the use case for the second use case. Now the third use case is a little bit more complicated in terms of code, but the customer wants to be able to query multiple servers and automatically add it in a list. So we wanted the user to have the ability to use a wildcard search to make it easier for them to add servers. And I'm going to cover a glide list or list collectors in this discussion. So this is how it looks like. So because they have, because they have that star at the start of CMS, when they click on search servers, it'll display all the server that has that star or CMS value in the wildcard. So to jump back to the form, so in here, this is the list collector. As what you notice, this is how list collectors look like now in ServiceNow. When they choose a server, it will display it in a table. But if they want to do multiple, so if I do dev and I do search, it will display, it'll look for everything that has the word dev and populate it in the list collector. So the client just wanted it to be in a list collector, nothing else. They work out of it from the back end. But we wanted, if they want to clear it, they can just go ahead and clear it. That's what you noticed. It deleted all the data that was inputted in the list collector. This is fine and dandy. So to show you the widget, it's a little bit more complicated. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye, because we want to make sure that we are pulling it from the correct table and querying, based out of the values. The essential component here is really the star index. That way we can have them do a wildcard search for the list collector. Now, if you want to expand on this one, add more bells and whistles to it, which we've done, modify the filter criteria, so on and so forth, definitely able to do that. All right, a lot more work, but it is feasible. So just to set that expectation. All right, so the last use case that I have is actually a little bit more tricky, and the reason behind it is the customer has a Python form that what that Python form does is that it's a table that automatically queries host and IP address. So it's like an on change, but on their original Python form. They wanted the same functionality within their service catalog, in their catalog form. And they wanted the ability to allow adding or removing of rows, but the caveat to it is that they didn't have discovery, and they don't want to pull host and IP information to a ServiceNow table. So what we had to do was use PowerShell to run a command to return the IP address or host name. Of course, we had to build a table and all those bells and whistles like adding, removing rows, but the biggest win was the PowerShell running command to return the IP address and host name. So, let me go back there. So just a snippet of how it looks like. This is the table, or this is the input table, and then I will show you the live version of it. So, before I show the live version of it, this is a good resource. We got a copy of the table variable widget, which was written by Jeff Benedict. I don't want to steal I think it's a very great widget. We found it in Share. We've tried it out, and some of the functionality that Jeff did in in his widget, we kind of adapted that into our scenario, right? So another thing that you may find useful on the PowerShell component is this. So this community article. So you can definitely, please go ahead and find it. It's pretty much written by Michael Conter wrote it, and it has a lot of in-depth discussion on how do you make it happen, right? How do you how do you run PowerShell when you don't have discovery? Or so basically, it's really dependent on the mid server. So what are the prerequisites? Very in-depth discussion on it, and very useful. So please go ahead and take your time. If this is something that you think you'll need to really look for this specific community article. All right, so that's some prep work before I show you the form. So I'll go ahead and just choose no here. And so you're going to notice here we added a button. The reason why we added a button and not just expose the table is the way it's laid out, this whole screen here, it's very tight. So if we added the table directly here, and we've done that, it's a very clunky looking, it doesn't look clean. So that's why we added a button instead, so that it fires up another modal. And this is where I will go ahead and just put some sample host. So as what you noticed, that was really quick. It pulled up the IP address, and if I want to put IP address instead of host name, because some people know that, they have the ability to do that. And then I can go ahead and add a row. Let me just click this. 25, let's just do some test application, test comments. So I'll add more so you can see how it looks like if it's a long form. And then I want to copy the same IP address and put it in here. So it automatically populates it there. And then if I want to do this, well, let's just do reverse on this one. So it populates that data here. So just again, test application. Now you can make it wherein before they can submit the form, the catalog form, there needs to be at least one value here. That's all up to you. We've done that. We had to take off that functionality because the user said some users or some submitters just attach the a spreadsheet. So they wanted that either or is fine. So once you save that, you're going to notice the table is here. If you need to add more or change it, you can still do that, right? And this is now the table. As what you see, it's responsive, it's clean, nice looking. And then on the back end, when they submit the form, here's a sample result. And this is how it looks like, right? So this functionality, again, going back to Jeff Benedict, very smart guy, who designed the majority of what we have, would say the framework of what we have done, very useful, and his widget's very reusable. So there is a script include that we had to write in order to make this happen. And then to show you let me just close this window, show you how it looks like. Let me open up the firewall. So in this specific example, you're going to see that the variable is actually not embedded as a widget, but we leveraged what we call the default value within it, right? So in here, what we're doing is we are calling a specific widget, which is found in here, right? And that's where this one is the widget. And if we try to look for that widget here, so we're calling it also. So, but again, there's a lot more work to it. The widget is just half of the work. The bulk of the work was really the script that we had to write in order to do that PowerShell command. So let me go back to my slide deck. So that's pretty much our 4 use case, and being mindful of the time. Here are some of the reading material resources that you can use Some of them you are very familiar with already, but for some it may be something new. The GitHub is very for Service Portal is very useful. I found it very useful. Of course, the original designer and developer for Service Portal, who has his own blog, very useful also. Also, if you are trying to understand Angular or UI Bootstrap, this section over here is very useful in what you can call and what you can, prettify, how you can prettify, that's what I say, your widget. So that was pretty much it for me. Any questions? I'll pass the ball back to Julia.
So I hope you guys enjoyed it. We have a question from Alistair that says, is there additional licensing costs with the Service Portal? I think, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, there's no additional cost to it. You just have to make sure that the costing comes would be on the approvers. So, for example, you just have to go back to your service account manager and check, what are your licensing model. But just turning on the plugin and using it, it doesn't cost anything.
Okay, so I don't see any other question, guys. This is the time. Oh, there you go. So UI macro widgets work on both ends, Service Portal and Service Catalog.
So the UI macro, or let me be more specific, the macro variable will work on your service catalog in Service Portal. Okay, UI macro itself will not work in Service Portal.
Okay, he says thanks. Okay, guys, if you have more questions, we'll wait a couple of minutes because I know you're typing. And as a reminder, because I see people asking me the same question, the recording is going to be available. We're going to send it to you in a couple of days. So max next week, you're going to have it. Unfortunately, we could not give the presentation deck because this is a company and we don't want to share with you. So you guys have to listen to the whole webinar. If you want to know this, if you want to learn this topic. So we are going to send you the recording. Any other question? Okay, if you don't have any other question, you can, or if you think about you have a question and you come up with it later on, you can send me an email at giulia@closing.com. You can go on our website. There are contact information there. You know how to reach out to us. So just send us an email. We're gonna be more than happy to help you. Okay. Thank you so much for attending today. We hope you liked it and you enjoyed it and it was interesting. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. We hope you enjoyed it as well.